This tutorial is about the one-letter variables in NLP++, and that includes N, S, X, G, and L. We're going to be using our markdown resume text that we've been using for the tutorials. We're going to be looking first at pass number 7, which is the header pass. In here, you're going to see actually all 5 variables. I'm going to show you some other examples of these variables. So this should give you a pretty good idea. The first variable we're going to talk about is the node variable, the N for node variable, and it refers to the nodes that are being matched in the rule. These are the nodes, and this is the suggested node that they will rewrite, meaning if you match this, they'll be put under a new node called header, and this is what we call the suggested node. So here you see we have node variable, and we have node 2, so it's getting the text from what's matched in node 2, which happens to be anything after these pound signs. So that gets the text. This is a special variable called $text. We're going to talk about that in a different tutorial, so don't worry about that right now. But this basically gets the text from the second node in the rule and puts it into a local variable. And the variable name is within the quotes in the parentheses. So this is a local variable called header. And this header would be experience, company not, Fakery Inc., etc. That local variable we're going to use several times. That's why we're doing a local variable. We're going to next take this local variable, this header, and we're going to attach that text to the suggested node, which we use the variable S. So anything with S is looking at attributes for the suggested node. So we're going to attach in the tree the suggested attribute on the suggested node, the attribute header, and put the text in for the header. We also use this out in a printout later on. You can see here. So that's why we have it in a couple places. That's why we have a local variable. And it also makes it more readable. This is not necessarily readable, so that's one of the reasons you may want to use the local variables. The next variable we're going to look at is what we call the context variable, context X. So we use the letter X, and that allows us to put attributes to the context, which is up here either under nodes or path. I'll show you path later. But this says whatever nodes underneath the root we're going to look at. We're looking at all the lines. Each line has been already previously parsed over here in pass 4. We're going to just mark on the line that we have a header. And in NLP++, we don't have true or false. We use 0 and 1. So we're going to say the attribute header, we're going to mark that line as that it is a header, because we have other lines that are not headers. For instance, this is a line, but it's not a header. So that's what that does. But again, the X goes to this line. Now, if there are more than one, if there's a path up here, then we have to do something else. So I'm going to look at that, and we're going to look at companies. Now, companies here, you notice we're now looking under path, at the root. Path means look under in order this path down the tree. So at the root, we're looking at something, a header zone, and then we're looking into the experience area, experience node. So what we're doing here is we're gathering all the companies, and again, we're not going to discuss this whole parser right now or analyzer right now. I'm just showing you what this you can also say is an X is a number. So you have 1, 2, 3. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a counter on number 3 called companies, and it's going to make a count every time it finds a company. It'll count. So we'll know how many companies are involved in experience on this tree node. We're gonna come back and look at the tree, and we'll look at all this. The last variable we're going to look at is the G variable, and that's a global. G is global. If you set it, it's available in all the passes over here. So if we look at the init, you're going to see that we have a max header, and that max header is a global variable. If we go back to header, you can see that if there's a max header, when we see this, the number of pound signs, if the number of pound signs is greater in this than the max header, then we set the max header to the count. Well, how do we get the number of pound signs? Well, we take the text from the first part, which is going to be either 2 pounds or 3 pounds or 1. We get the text, which will be, again, all pound signs. We're going to get the string length of that, and that'll be a count. So that'll be either here it'd be 1, here it'd be 2, here it'd be 2, here it'd be 3. And we're going to store that in the suggested, and that is on header, we're going to store the count of the pound signs onto the header. So that's how we use these variables. Again, node refers to the rules. The suggested refers to putting attributes on the suggested node, which is in the rules area. We have the context where we can put information on this, or we can put our information, for instance, on the third one, or if we want to put it here in the second one, the X will do that. The number will tell you where. And then we also have the global variable, local variable, which we can use just to make things more readable, because obviously this doesn't look like header, and we use it in several places. And finally, the global variable, which we keep, and that literally can be accessed in any of these passes here. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this on the text. Let's run this analyzer. We're going to take a look at what this all does. So that will be the second part of this tutorial. So we're going to click here and look at the final text here. But what we're going to look at is some of the things that we've matched here. So here's the header. So we're going to go over here. And with the pass 7, you can look at the tree just at that point instead of the final tree. So that's what we're going to do to make it simpler. So this is the tree at this header point. And you notice here on line 22, we have header with the value 1, meaning, hey, this line is a header. You know, this line is not a header. That comes from this statement right here. This statement says X. If I could put comma 1 here, but we don't need to comma. If there's only one thing here, you don't have to put a number here. So that puts that 1 on line up here. Now you notice also on the suggested header, we have the header here. We have the header overview. So how did we get that? Well, here's the suggested header, and it's getting the header, which is overview. You can see from this word here, it comes from this part of the text. Okay, so that's how we get that, and you can see how that works. We also have a count here, count 2, and that's from taking the number of it matches these 2 pound signs, and we look at that matches as many pound signs. Node 1 matches as many pound signs as it finds, gets the string length of that and puts the count, and there you have the count. Okay, and then we have a Gmax, and it'll just find the maximum value. And this is for the actual analyzer, which I will talk in recursion. It's not important right now what you need to know. It's all you need to know is we're setting a global variable. The old thing where you find a bigger one and you keep setting it to the bigger and bigger one. That's what that is. And one other thing we want to look at is the companies. So I'm going to click over here. We're going to take a look at the tree for the companies. And now if I go up here, we're going to be able to find experience. Let's look at experience. And one of the things we did in the companies rule was pass was to, when we found a header zone, which is going to be a company under experience, we're going to just increment the companies, and we're going to attach it to the third one, 1, 2, 3, which is the experience node. Come over here, experience node, and voila, you have companies 2. Why? Well, this fired twice, and so it incremented that 2 times. So you can see how we can target exact places in the tree. That's really, really important, and we can put concepts on the tree, pointing concepts into the knowledge baits, etc. But I hope that gives you a good idea of how we use those five variables, which are the node variable, the suggested variable, the context variable, the local variable, and the global variable.